Questions?
Coach,
All two.
to TG Sports, you know, the one thing that a coach can't control is when the ball doesn't go in, but as far as the offense, how do you feel about it in the first half and the second half? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that we were disjointed, I mean, this was our first time, really playing as a team with Candace on the floor. She obviously isn't at her peak levels, but it was also, I think, obvious that a lot of our group expected things to happen because she's back that just are not going to magically appear. So it's not fair to assume those things and place that burden upon Candace. And it's also not fair to themselves and to our group to just expect, great things to happen because she's out there. We still have to manage the details and all the small things that go into executing offensively and getting stops on the defensive end. I thought defensively, probably as much as offensively early on, even though some easy shots were not going in. It was defensively, where some of the miscommunication and breakdowns that happen when people don't trust each other quite yet because they're not accustomed to being out there together in that way. That's what really broke us down early in this game.
You kind of spoke on it, but do you think that having Candace back, her being the superstar that she is, kind of like relaxed you guys and you guys didn't come out with the necessary energy needed?
I mean, the players can answer that better directly. I don't want to assume that's what they were thinking, but kind of from my perspective, that's kind of what I just, just kind of mentioned that's what at times it looked like. Offensively, I thought at times players weren't as aggressive because they wanted to kind of defer and make sure that she touched the ball or that she was involved. And then I thought defensively at times we looked a little bit confused and lost in terms of some things that we wanted to do with the starting lineup we had out there that we just haven't had a lot of time, to practice with that particular group. And we weren't able to put it out there on the floor tonight and get the stops we needed to start this game. But, hopefully over the next couple of days we can do that and get ourselves prepared for Friday night.
Coach, it seemed like there were a fair number of plays in the game where you were running the ball through the elbow and had some back cuts that weren't quite, the timing wasn't quite right on, either passes that sailed a little bit or were just a little bit late. Do you just attribute that to players needing to get that chemistry and that timing right, or schematics, or what's going on with that?
No, I think it's a combination of, players, I think first is making poor decisions on passes. I mean, regardless of what you run, can't throw the ball to the other team. So, I think that's first and foremost. And then, secondly, yes, in terms of timing, chemistry, understanding, where players can catch the ball and still be successful in terms of where to put it. If you throw it too high, that teammate can't catch it as well. She's not going to be able to finish that play, so I shouldn't even take that risk, etc. Those are things that you figure out over time. But, we try to be pretty clear, with our players that you don't have to, overdo it. Just make simple plays. If it's not a sure thing, just pass on it this time and, look to take advantage on the next possession.
On your right.
TG Sports. Coach, I know it's early in the season, but do you think a game like this was necessary so that it's kind of like a wake-up call for the girls?
I mean, in the moment, it may not feel that way, but I do think in the long term, it always is. Like, I think adversity always shines a mirror in your face much bigger and brighter than you ever imagined. And I think you oftentimes find more things out about yourself when you have to go through some things and fight through some stuff, in particular when it's in front of friends and family and, media. You're forced to ask yourself some tough questions. And, I've mentioned to our players already that coaches that I've played for in the past that would mention, like, winning covers a multitude of sins. So, we walked back into Staples Center earlier over the weekend. We're 4-2. Everybody's telling you how good you are. Look at the Sparks. Go, go, go. and then 4 or 5 days later, this is how we feel. But there's no skipping these steps, you know, in terms of where we want to go, who we're trying to become. This is all a part of it. It's easy to look at people that have been successful once they've been successful. It's easy to look at teams that have won a championship after they win a championship, but look at how much they had to go through. Look at what the Raptors had to do to finally win a championship. They had to fire a coach that was the coach of the year. They had to trade their franchise player to get another player that may not even resign with them after this year. They had to trade for Marc Gasol during the season, right before the trade deadline, in order to help get over the hump. And the Warriors had to have the injuries and all the stuff so this is not easy. And so as many times as we get knocked down, there's no quitting, there's no feeling sorry for ourselves, there's no giving up on the process. And it's only until after you win and you cry and you feel the emotion that comes with having sacrificed and fought through the adversity, it's not until then that it all makes sense.
John.
Coach John W. Davis with W Insider. Two-part question. You and I, we often talk about statistics and analytics a little bit. Do you chalk 3 of 19 to just an anomaly, or how do you look at that? Do you just say this is an outlier? We probably won't shoot 16% anymore.
We probably will at some point. I think each time is a little different. There were times tonight where as soon as the ball left the player's hands, it wasn't going in. It was short. It was off. Like, it just wasn't there. I think some of that was fatigue, honestly. You know, you always have to give your opponent credit. I think at times they were good defensively. But we also settled at times. I think when you play offense in a vacuum, it just doesn't flow the same. Even if you're open, the shots don't go in the same because you're not doing it together. You're just shooting it because you're kind of open and you could shoot it, but there's no purpose or intention behind the shot. You're just shooting. And I thought that we did that a lot tonight. And it doesn't flow the same when it happens that way. So I think it's a combination of things. Hopefully we won't, be 3 for 19 again, but more than likely we will. The interesting thing is that, again, we turned the ball over 27 times and gave up 38 points off of those, and we still had the same amount of field goal attempts as our opponent. So 27 times we didn't even get a shot, and we still shot the ball the same amount of times as they did. So, even with 16%, if you just take care of the basketball, I think you still have a chance.
Megan.
Megan Hines from the South Report. You guys held the Mystics to 14 points in the third quarter. What was the message to the team defensively going to have?
To win the third quarter. I mean, any hope we had of winning the game was going to have to start with winning the third quarter. If you don't win the third quarter, you definitely don't have a chance. Also, that the habits that we're trying to build and where we're trying to go, they won't stop tonight. So regardless of the score, regardless of the ultimate result of this game, there's just a certain way that, we have to compete and fight, and whoever's out there, you just have to get it done. And I thought that there was a second unit in the second quarter that started to play that way. Like, even though we weren't necessarily closing the lead, like, it just felt like they were trying harder and they were flying around a little bit more and they were more scrappy than our first group. And then that carried over into the third quarter, because when you see your teammates doing something, then you can't walk back over there if you don't do it. And once the first group saw that the second group was playing hard and working hard, and even though things weren't going well, they still were trying really hard, I thought that carried over into the third quarter a little bit.
Rico.
Rico Cabrera, East LA Sports Team. Hi, Coach. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I know, Coach, you're going to be looking at this from the perspective of the film. You're going to break down the film on defense. But the lesson to learn tonight, we were thinking, or at least my thinking is, there's a very good set of bigs and point guards. So we're seeing Dylan Dunn and Christy Tolliver.
Mm-hmm.
Any other given team you might find the same. Might that be something that you'll be looking at, how to counteract the bigs and the point guards on the inside and outside games?
Yeah, no, that's always a challenge when you play against good teams that are not just relying on one player to carry the load. Good teams move the basketball. I mean, they had 20 assists tonight on their 28 made field goals. So they weren't trying to do everything off the dribble. They were doing a lot off the pass. They would drive it, draw two, kick it out to an open teammate. If she didn't like her shot, she would pass up a good one to get somebody a great one. And when you have players like Deladon and Tolliver on the court, the tendency is for the players guarding them to want to hang closer to them, which breaks your defense down even more. And it's hard for players to trust that they can still be a part of the team defense, even though they're guarding a really good player.
Time for one more. Mia.
Mia Berry, LA Times. Despite tonight's loss, did you see any positives that maybe you can take into practice this week and fine tune a little bit? Great passes or great sequences of defense?
Yeah, no, I think there were, at least for me right now until I watch it back, there were a handful of defensive possessions that look like the way, we will have to always try and defend, which we've done a lot this season. So it's not something that we haven't done before, but we weren't able to consistently do it tonight. Offensively, there were points in the game where I mentioned to our assistant coaches, don't look at the fact that the ball didn't go in on that shot. Look at the shot that we got. And the shot opportunities that Candace missed right around the basket, that won't continue to happen. Some of the open shots that our players had, that's not going to happen every night that we miss. We got good opportunities. We got good shots at times. There were times we played some really good defense. But, tonight just wasn't our night. And I know for a fact that, I don't want to promise you everything, but I don't know how many more times we'll ever walk in here and it'll say 27 turnovers for 38 points given up off those turnovers. It's a pretty safe bet there that won't happen much again. So, the positives are that, we're healthy for the most part. We're getting closer to that. Hopefully Elena's back soon. Maria will be back in a few weeks. And we can just continue to work at who we're going to become. But lastly, we got 26 games left to go. That's great that this is not our last game. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, gang. Thank you.